Billy Luna.
Today on part 1.
He's a tough dude. He had some interesting wiretaps. I remember, late in his life, he had kind of a memorable one where he talked about how, today people are lazy. When they kill someone, they just leave them in the street. He said,
Right.
It's better to take the hour and, get rid of it, and you'd be in a better way. So
These kids today, they're so lazy with getting rid of their bodies and such.
Yeah.
Come on, man. It's like get off of TikTok for 5 minutes.
And go
take care of a body correctly, please. Today's guest is Mafia historian Jeff Nadu.
Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it. You have quite the voice for podcasts. I think you will do quite well. Not to be weird, but you have a good voice for that. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, man. No, it's a pleasure having you. A Bronx Tale, of course, written and starring Chaz Palmenteri, directed by Robert De Niro.
I think the film is, I think it's super realistic. I mean, I think that's truthfully how it was in, the 60s, right? In the Bronx. You had these people that kind of ran the neighborhood, and I think there's kind of an air of like mysteriousness of like who it is and who it's about. Because I don't think it's about any one particular gangster. I think it's really just about the story of Chaz's life, and most of that story is based on what he saw as a kid. I just like kind of the different kind of plot lines, like with he meets the black girl on the bus, and there's a lot of racial issues going on, and I don't know. I just think the acting's super good. You learn a lot from it. I mean, it's very. I just think kind of just realistic. I think the scenes are just so memorable, and whether it's the biker scene or the ending or whatever. And De Niro does such a great job. It's kind of that straight bus driver who has, a kid that's between the streets and him trying to do good. And yeah, I loved it. I think it's super well done.
Yeah, I guess Chaz Palmenteri started off as like a one-man show that he used to just do by himself on stage, and I guess he's going to be resurrecting that. And obviously, he's an incredible actor. He does
currently. Yeah.
Oh, he's doing it. It started already. Oh, yeah, that's pretty awesome. I'd love to see that. I heard him say at some point like he was. He wasn't really connected so much as he just knew people in the neighborhood that were, and that's kind of what he based things on.
Well, it's interesting because some of the characters in the film are actually just like real people that he picked off the street. He actually retweeted one of my posts that I made on Twitter about, I had found out that the Eddie Mush character is actually he was a real person from the neighborhood that was a degenerate gambler. And they, basically went up to him and said, hey, just be yourself. And he was supposed to go to a casting call, but he didn't show up because he went to the horse track. And, he ended up playing the part, and he played a degenerate gambler really well. And that's just something I like about the film. There's a lot of like really literal, expressive characters. And, I actually, weirdly enough, when I left Barstool Sports, I was there until June. I had gotten in contact with one of Chaz's people, and I was working on possibly interviewing him at some point because I have a lot of questions about the film itself. And I had uncovered some information about who I think Sonny actually is, character-wise, in the real mob. I don't know if it's just one person, but he's never actually come out and said who it was, but I think I may know who it might be.
Who do you think?
So, from what I understand, there was a guy in the Lucchese crime family. His name was Fat Gigi Inglace. He was a big-time drug dealer, big-time guy in the Bronx back in the 70s. And I have a sort of weird feeling that it's something to do with him possibly, but I'm not sure that he'll ever come out and say who it is, but I have my ideas about certain people, put it that way. Interesting.
I mean, obviously that movie, the most iconic scene from that movie, I think, is perhaps, I can't remember, is it the Beatles song they use, Come Together, when the biker gang comes into the bar? Is that what I think they use the song, which is awesome and interesting use, kind of like De Niro comes from like the Martin Scorsese school of directing, where you kind of use that kind of music. And, they obviously, the scene, and when I'll edit some pictures in of the thing where, the bikers come in, they're being a little bit out of line to the bartender. Sonny's character comes in and says, hey, let's be diplomatic about everything. But then, they like, F you, and they just start tearing the place apart. And then he's like, now you can't leave. And then just F them all up. And, all the bikers and the Italian guys come out with the bats and all the mafiosi. And that's the iconic scene. It's awesome. And it's interesting because, I was just, curious about, I've heard a couple of things. Like I recently interviewed S.J. Petty, who wrote the book Sonny on Sonny Franzese. And she had mentioned that, I can't remember if it's in her book or if she actually told me the story, but she said that the genesis of that scene is actually something that happened to Sonny Franzese. And obviously his name is Sonny, and then of course, in the book Underboss by Peter Moss, the great author Peter Moss, there's a scene, I don't know if you remember, where Sammy the Bull gets into a fight with these bikers. So I don't know, any thoughts on that maybe being the genesis?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Gravano because that was actually the same. If you actually follow more into that story, Gravano actually ultimately kills a teenage boy he mistakes for one of the bikers. That's how the story actually ends. But I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if it was just something that Chaz, maybe had heard about when he was a kid or something or whatnot. But I don't know of any involvement that the New York Mafia had with like a biker gang at a bar. With Sonny Franzese, it wouldn't surprise me. He was 103 when he died. He saw a hell of a lot. There was rumors that Sonny was made before the age of 20. So that's surely possible in his 80 plus years of being connected. I do know of, like the Philly mob was pretty involved with the Pagen's motorcycle club at one point. But they work kind of in unison. I don't know of any beefs that the New York families had with bikers, but it could have been kind of made up and kind of based on something else. I'm not sure.
Well, it's interesting. The Philly mob, obviously, you mentioned the Pagen motorcycle gang, very prominent there, and Pagans were never that prominent in New York City. And it's funny. I actually tried to, I don't know why I was doing this, but a while ago I tried to really get to the bottom of it, and I found a few smaller biker gangs that were in that neighborhood, but I couldn't get anything conclusive. But I couldn't really find it. But it's interesting.
It's surely possible. It definitely struck me as odd that a biker gang would drive through the Bronx. It's just not really like, where would you be going? I guess because if you're driving through the Bronx, you'd probably go more towards like some of the expressways and stuff. So it just didn't really make a lot of sense to me, but I guess it's possible that it happened, but it's nothing that I know about in history. I'm not sure of anything.
Yeah, like when I was actually looking into it, I wasn't looking at the Bronx. I was looking at the Sammy story. So I was looking at Bensonhurst, and there was a couple that kind of were in there, but I couldn't, definitively say that. But that's, such a great scene. And of course, it's always kind of fun. We're guys who dig organized crime. So there's when you mix it up, when you mix the outlaw motorcycle gangs with Cosa Nostra, and it's we've seen that in The Sopranos, and we've seen that in different places, which is, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, that's interesting. That would be great to ask Chaz. And I don't know if he's ever commented on it, but that would be something interesting.
I know people have asked him, but he's never actually come out and said anything about who it was or what it was based on.
Right. There's a lot of tough guys in the Mafia. Sonny Franzese was a tough guy. He was definitely a guy.
I think he's a guy who, he was in prison a lot. I think that's kind of the big issue that he had. And what's interesting is the 50-year sentence that he got, you could probably make the case he was framed. I think a lot of people believe he was. Probably should have never had gotten that sentence to begin with. Now, he didn't actually serve 50 years. He just kind of served it like he'd get out and go back in, go out, go back in. I think in the end he served about 30 years out of the 50, but it really prevented him from ever actually elevating to boss. That was a family that had a lot of problems. He was definitely one of the more, I think, kind of in the middle people in the family. I think he probably could have been the boss, but he was definitely kind of an elder statesman by the end. And he was a gangster to the end, a gangster to the core. When you look at his sons, I don't think they were half the gangster that he was. But yeah, he's a tough dude. He had some interesting wiretaps. I remember, late in his life, he had kind of a memorable one where he talked about how, today people are lazy. When they kill someone, they just leave them in the street. He said, It's better to take the hour and, get rid of it. And you'd be in a better way. So
an ounce of prevention, as it were, right?
I think from what I remember, he said he used, and I'm not going to get in. I don't want to get you demonetized, but he used a pool for it. He would,
yeah. No, you can say anything you want. I'll just beep it out, man. You know.
He would say that he would use he would number a body and he'd use a microwave, and then before he'd do all that, he'd drain the in a little pool.
Mm-hmm.
He said it's better to take the hour and get rid of the body. So
right, it's don't be lazy. Today's generation.
I mean,
habeas corpus, you know what I mean? It's that story was kind of interesting because he's like, take the body, and he was very descriptive. I can't even remember exactly, but take it to the pool, but then put the thing in the microwave and smash the down, then take it and put it into an industrial garbage disposal or something.
Yeah, or just get it and throw it in an ocean. Make sure you anchor it down, and that'll be that. But I guess these kids today. I mean, these guys today, they don't want to take the time to do it. So.
These kids today, they're so lazy with getting rid of their bodies and such. Come on, man. It's like get off of TikTok for 5 minutes.
And go
take care of a body correctly, please.
Entire interview coming soon.
Part 2 next week.
El Chapo was just a figurehead. He was not the boss of the Sinaloa cartel. And what people need to realize is the boss of the Sinaloa cartel is El Mayo Zambada. He's this old guy. He lives in the mountains of, Sinaloa, and he sits on a bunch of money, and he's never been arrested. I would just advise to not kill anyone. I would just
kids out there, don't kill. Just stay in school.
Yeah.
Billy Luna. This is Victoria Luna. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the videos, and share with your mates on social media. Check out these awesome videos now. Ciao.